Good morning and welcome to Ita and Amanda's book chat number 6.
We have so many.
Yes. We're going to start off today just doing a little bit of promotion for our library. So on the Tuesday, the 4th of May, we have Nicola Monterati doing a online Zoom talk. Talking about her new book, You Need to Know. And it's a bit of a family saga / thriller. So she will be talking with us at Tuesday, the 4th of May via Zoom at 6 p.m. The Tamworth Library will also be live streaming the Sydney Writers' Festival on Friday, April 30th to Sunday, May the 2nd. If you would like to pick up a schedule, just pop into the Tamworth Library or check out the Tamworth Library Facebook page and we have a link to those sessions. You do need to book via Eventbrite or you can give the Tamworth Library a call and they can book in for you. Okay, so we have a new audience member with us today. So welcome, Julian.
Hello.
And welcome to our regulars, Susan and Peter. So, Julian, we start off with our sessions for new audience members, asking them, why do you read?
And maybe a short introduction of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Julian and I work with Jonathan in the makerspace, which is upstairs in the library. So we get to play around with lots of cool technology like 3D printers, laser cutters, 360 cameras and all that cool gear. I started about 2.5 years ago. So prior to that, I was a teacher and I didn't get to do much reading for pleasure. So all my reading, basically I'd read maybe 1 or 2 books a year for pleasure. The rest was just reading for my job. If it wasn't related to my job as a teacher, it's very busy. So it was really good starting at the library. Access to all those books on a daily basis, and I've sort of got back into reading for pleasure, which has been fantastic. So yeah, that's the main reason I read. I like to read sort of books that sort of to escape reality. So I go for more books that are maybe the science fiction sort of angle or thrillers, that sort of thing. I've recently got into mysteries a little bit as well, but yeah, I mainly read to sort of escape, to get away from just normal stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of our reasons, isn't it?
Yes.
Especially during COVID, everyone just wanted to escape in their books. Don't have to deal with reality. Yeah, definitely. So
excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Julian. We tried to talk Julian in joining us last month, but we got Jonathan instead.
Which is great too.
So we are going to start off with what we have been reading lately and what book you would most likely recommend to someone. So we'll start with Ida. What have you been reading?
Cool. So this month I read a bit more than last month. I actually did my homework. So one of them was a recommendation from Julian, Ben Elton, Identity Crisis. So I picked that up because I wanted to cross my reading challenge, a staff recommendation of my challenge. It is a satire, it's black humor, but I found it very close to the bone. So I really thought this could happen, and it has lots of issues. So it has the Me Too movement, it has gender identification, all the things that are in the media now. It has reality TV, it has Russia influencing politics in the UK or maybe even America, whatever. So all these things done with dark humor, but I was thinking, this could be happening. So for me, it was a little bit too close to the bone, but I thought it was very interesting. I definitely read the whole thing. So I would recommend this one to anyone that wants to read something modern, up to date, and I actually learned a lot, even though it was black satire. I learned about, what goes behind the scenes with IT companies and how media companies influence what people think. It was, and I definitely think it could happen. So there was Ben Elton, Identity Crisis. And there was another one I read this month that I could cross off my list, which was Ghostbird by Lisa Fuller. So this is a young adult novel. And Amanda had started reading it last month, and she told me, oh, it's not scary, you can read it. So I was reading it Saturday night. Everybody had already gone to bed. It was dark. I heard all these noises out there. It could be possums or it could be what they're writing about. So I had to put the book away, and then I finished it on Sunday during daylight. And I loved it. It was really good. It's a young adult one. It's done by a young Aboriginal author. She actually did her master's about this. And it's about twins. It's creepy. It has a great sense of place. It deals with Aboriginal culture, family connection. It's really interesting and scary for me, very scary for me. Anyway, so I would recommend this for anyone that's interested in Aboriginal culture, in twin relationships, in family relationships. It's an easy read. I read it in, a couple of days. And you can cross it off your list because it's a young adult for your reading challenge. Yeah. I read a few others, but I won't go into that too much, but I'll tell you the title. So Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, because I wanted to try out our new, so it's not Ivy Digital now, it's Libby. So our new platform is Libby. So I was just having a look what there was, and I found I've always wanted to read this book and I never have. So I listened to it, and it's just a fun classic adventure book. Yeah, really nice. I also listened to The Science of Happiness by Brendan Kelly, only because I was waiting for one of my other ones to come in. And it was a really lovely accent by the narrator. So that's why I gave him 2.5 points, because other than that, there's nothing new in the book, but it's pleasant enough. Like, it's not a hard book to read. And The Dressmaker's Secret. So that's the next one from The Dressmaker, which is another black humor one. So if you like dark humor and fashion, then I would recommend that one.
And do you have to have read The Dressmaker to read?
It would help because there's a huge cast, and you keep thinking, oh, who's this again? Who's that again? But if you've read the first one, you have more of a sense of who's who. Yeah, because she's not very friendly about these characters. Like, it is satire, but it's still quite harsh. Country people and the way she talks about them, it's not real nice. But I really enjoyed the book. Yeah, it's good.
And so Rosalie Ham will be doing an author talk
at
Tamworth Library on the
3rd of July. So 3rd of July on a Saturday afternoon, she's coming to do an author talk. And in that period, the gallery upstairs from the library has got a exhibition about the first dressmaker, all the clothes, the fashion and everything. So it ties in beautifully with that.
I'm looking forward to that. The costumes were amazing in the movie.
Yes, yeah. So that's, so I've read heaps this month. And I crossed off some things. So have you read anything?
I have. So from previous sessions that we have done, I read The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman on Tanya Heaslip's recommendation and absolutely loved it.
Oh, cool.
So it's set in a little English retirement village where 4 retirees that are in between 70 and 80 meet every Thursday and go through cold case murders until a murder actually takes place on the retirement village, and then they get involved in trying to solve that murder. And without giving too much away, it's just a funny, hilarious book to read. The characters are lovable and warm-hearted, so I strongly recommend that. And I dare say it's going to be a series because
it is. I saw it.
The second
one's coming out.
At the end of the year. So I recommend, if you just it's a pure escapism book. So if you are after something lighthearted, again, it's not your normal mystery thriller where it's, you know, kind of gross. And
Oh, your normal books.
It's just really warm-hearted and light-hearted. That's right. So it could be one for you, Susan, where you don't. It's not you know, too much depiction of dead bodies and
yeah, it's
stuff.
on my to-read list.
Yes. And my other book that I read, I got this recommendation from Peter and Susan last month, is The Last Migration by Charlotte Mcconaughey. And I won't go too much into what it's about because that was in our last book chat. But I absolutely loved it. I found that even though Franny, the main character, was damaged and it was a very depressing book, I actually found that she had a lot of resilience. And I found that she was very loving towards the people that she came in contact with as well. So I was actually fighting for her survival. Like I was going through thinking, do not die.
Don't tell me because I'm reading it now.
Without giving too much. But I think in the book, you kind of get that feeling that she does want to end her life. And so I was really, you know, hoping that she would survive. And she was just a fantastic character to go on the journey with, despite what she went through and how it was kind of a depressing tale, but I just loved her resilience to get through that. So thank you, Susan and Peter. It made me pick up that book from my bookshelf and read it. And I thought the writing was amazing. It was almost lyrical. The words were almost.
Yeah.
It's quite an amazing trick to be able to portray a character within the same sentence as being both fragile and resilient, as being terrified and yet courageous. And that was done time and time and time again. It's a beautiful piece of writing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Was that all you have read?
I have also just recently finished Silke's Journey, the second book in the Tattoo of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. Again, it was a beautifully written book. So it was about Silke Klein, who was in Auschwitz, and then she was moved to the Gulag for being in, what's the word I'm looking for? Collaboration with the Nazis during her time in Auschwitz. So it just followed her story. Again, it was a little bit depressing, but she was like Franny, a brave, courageous, resilient character. So if you have read The Tattoo of Auschwitz and you did enjoy that story, I would recommend Silke's Journey.
Yeah, I was thinking of reading that with my book club.
Yes, and I did note when I put my recommendation on Goodreads that there is a third book coming out in there. Yes, so I think that comes out at the end of the year.
Awesome. So we asked Peter, seeing he gave the recommendation of The Last Migration, which I'm reading now, but we'll talk about that later. So what have you read that you would recommend, Peter?
We're going to be able to talk about that book for months.
I know, right?
I read 4 this month, and I'd only recommend one of them. So I'll discuss it first. It's 142 Ostriches by April Davina. She's a new young writer. Comes out of the States from California, obviously writes about she knows. So this book's set in the high desert in California, where she has been drafted to stay with her grandmother, and her grandmother doesn't particularly want her there, who runs a ostrich farm with these 142 ostriches. And she's had a pretty sad background, and the grandmother dies in what looks suspiciously like suicide, runs her car into an oncoming car. So she's now left with the job of running this ostrich farm. She's in her 20s and she's had all sorts of issues with drugs and everything else. And it's the story of how family then try to intervene, etc. And she just wants to leave. And she was going to be leaving before Grandma died. And she gradually feels that she can't, it's not for Grandma's sake, but she can't leave the ostriches. And it has all sorts of interesting twists and turns in it. She shoots and nearly kills her uncle, quite on purpose because he was trying to kill her. But it's a very interesting read by a young writer. And yeah, I'd recommend it. I'd give it 4 stars. It was not a lot of twists and turns, but just some interesting portrayal of human nature in it, which I thought was quite good. She seems an interesting girl. Her biography she describes herself as a practicing Buddhist, a half-hearted gardener, and an occasional runner. So, which is an interesting combination. The other 3 I read one was an old book from 1994, which a mate gave me. He said, "You're a poet, you'd love to read this." Wrong. It called I'll Have Chips by Jim Hayes. Very ordinary. The other one that was very ordinary, and I've only just returned it to the library and got rid of it. I didn't finish it. It was Never Grow Up by about Jackie Chan. It's told in the first person, but it's actually written by someone else, originally written into Chinese and translated. Maybe it lost some things in the process, but he just comes across as a really big-headed, doesn't care who he hurts and all that sort of stuff. So I got sick of it after he destroyed one girl and walked all the top of someone else and accused an American company that made the Cannonball Run, which was made back in the 80s, with a lot of American stars in it. He was employed knowing he was going to play the role of a Japanese racing car driver. He's a Chinese from Hong Kong. So he took the money and was happy to take on the role, and then complained about the fact they cast him as Japanese. Complained about the fact that none of the actors talked to him. He couldn't speak a word of English. So, I lost after a third of the book. I just couldn't stand him any longer. Another one, would I recommend it? Possibly. I don't know. I've never read this guy's work, Robert Goddard, but apparently he's a crime writer of some note. So this was called The Fine Art of Invisible Detection. Some quite improbable moments in the storyline. The narrative went in some weird directions. And if you can accept and believe that a middle-aged Japanese woman can take on the role of being a detective because her boss, who was a detective, got killed and she felt she should finish the case, having never done that work before, and she travels all over the world and takes on these big corporate baddies, and while the bodies stack up all around her, she manages to survive. If you can believe that, you'll probably love this book.
That sounds interesting. I like you kind of selling it to me there.
It wasn't bad. As I say, I've not read this guy's work before, but I do note that there's 20 or 30 or something other crime books he's written. So, but it just didn't enthrall me. It's not a genre I normally read. Granted, but others that I have read in the genre have been far more engaging, have dragged me into the story. This, I felt like I was an observer all the way through it, and I didn't really feel like I was part or participating in what she was going through. But and it had some fairly obvious doffs of the cap to Le Carrier and that, but no, not even the same class. But yeah, anyway, for what it's worth, I gave it 3 stars. I'm not sure I'd recommend it. Depends if you're a fan of Rob Goddard, you probably love it. So
I've never read anything new of this. No.
Yeah. But as usual, I do my shopping from the new bookshelf in the library. And
I think I should from whatever you guys are talking about.
Yeah, that's great. I've been on Winners for 6 months, so yeah, found some great books there. So
good.
2 more in the kit, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah, good. What about you, Julia? Oh, sorry, were you going to talk?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say introduce the next person.
Oh, okay, well there you go. What have you read lately, Julia? Is it something you'd recommend?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm lucky. You guys can only talk about the last month. I can draw on further back.
The last 30 years.
I talk about lately, and I've been getting into this author, John Birmingham, who actually wrote a book, a very famous book back in the 90s, which I haven't read, 1994, which was he died with a falafel in his hand.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I've read the write-up of that book, and his current books are a lot different than that. But one I can really recommend is 0 Day Code, which is part of the End of Days series. And he does a fantastic job. He basically builds the whole world, you know. This is set in the near future. And it's basically end of days, so the whole world is going to be destroyed, and the whole reason is there's droughts and things, and China wants to secure its food source, and it needs to take over Southeast Asia. So they do this cyber attack on America, which shuts down their food network. While they're distracted, they can just move in and, you know, take over all these countries and secure their food source. So it's a really, you know, quite apocalyptic sort of setup, but it then follows, like, it builds the world in the couple of days after the attack happens, and it follows sort of, I guess, 3 groups of characters and how they navigate this landscape. And it basically, what happens is the cities start starving and they move out, push out to the country, and there's roaming gangs, sort of Mad Max style thing of bikies and that going around trying to get resources. But one thing I found myself doing when I was reading it was one of the characters is that they follow is an online far right YouTuber who is a really racist, horrible person, and you start out hating him, but he flees the city and winds up in this small town and starts helping them. And you end up not caring about him at the start, but he's such a horrible person. But the way he writes and sort of builds his situation, that you sort of be barracking for him by the end of the first book. You're like, oh, I want him to be, I don't want him to die or anything. I want him to navigate through this. But it follows another 2 groups of people who are in different situations trying to get somewhere. And look, he's an Australian author. I would recommend 0 Day Code because he's an Australian author for the one book on region, maybe, as a way to, you know, something a bit different. It is probably not to everyone's taste, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. But I've started, because of that book, there's 2 in that series. It's an ongoing one. He's actually got 2 series going at the same time. But once I start reading an author, I like to keep going and read everything. So another one that series that he's got going is A Girl in Time, and it's a time travel book, but a video game programmer from the near future. She gets dragged into this time traveling situation by this cowboy from the 1800s who's trying to find his way home, and he has this magical watch that
I think you've lost Susan.
Yeah, I was being polite. I wasn't pulling faces because I don't know Julian well enough to know if I can get away with that.
Anyway,
Apple Watch, Julian.
but yeah, he clicks the watch and he goes randomly through time, and it sort of follows their journey. But it's really good in that it seems he tries to make it, I can only imagine, but quite historically accurate. So in one of the scenarios, they're in Victorian London, and then in another one, they go back to Rome, you know, and with all their, you know, technology and gear and their knowledge of history, they go back, and it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. They also go back to the future, and
You sold it to me.
sort of a dystopian sort of future as well. So I found that one those ones really good as well.
Is that
So,
what you're saying?
So that's Doctor Who in a Stetson.
kind of. I mean, they don't have. Yeah, Doctor Who doesn't really have control. Yeah, so they don't. But she uses her, I guess, critical thinking that because apparently video game developers are really good at sort of thinking things out, and she looks at it like a game, like solving a problem in a game to try to get back. So there's 2 books out in the series, but they still haven't sort of worked it out. I think there's a 3rd coming soon. So,
So who would you recommend it to?
who would I recommend it to? I mean, I think the A Girl in Time, even though it is, you know, with the time travel and that, it's kind of more of a linear story in that you're following the same people. It's a bit easier to read than his other series, and they don't focus too much on the, you know, magical. It's more about history and stuff like that. So that's one I would recommend to anyone who's open to reading some science fiction. It's quite a good start, I think. It would be a good start. The other one is a bit doomsday. So people who are into, you know, what would happen if things go wrong, what could happen, and they're interested in that sort of thing. I think I'd recommend the 0 Day Code for the people who are into that. Yeah, so obsessed with that at the moment. The series I've started now. He's written a 6-part series on time travel, but it leads into people from the near future going back to World War II, and then they alter the whole of history. And I think it leads into, in the last 3 books, Stalin's Hammer, where it's like if the communists take over. So a whole different sort of history, I guess, going on there and changing things. So I'm keen to get onto that towards the end of the series. So yeah.
Right.
And are all those books available at the Tamworth Library?
No. 0 Day Code isn't at the library, which is very unfortunate, being an Australian author. One of his 2 others, so the one I'm currently reading is at the library, which is Axis of Time, Weapons of Choice, and those books are at the library. And another one of his series is at the library, which I haven't started yet. So.
Yeah.
And I noticed Peter had put his hand up, so...
Yes, because I'm very polite. What's the author's name?
John Birmingham.
Oh, it's the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Same guy.
All of these were by John Birmingham.
Yeah, I get obsessed and I don't really delve into.
Yeah.
I fancy I've read something else of his, but not the cookbook one.
Yeah.
Kidding.
John Birmingham wrote children's books. Is it the same author?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen that. I've looked at his whole, catalogue, but I haven't seen children's books in there.
Okay.
Might be a different one.
Could be a different one.
So Julian has got me thinking, with series, do you read, who prefers to read the whole series all in one go, or who takes breaks between each book and continues reading another book?
Depends on the series for me. Sometimes I'm like Julian and I just want to indulge in that one series.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes like with The Painted Man, I was going, one after the other, there's thick books.
Yeah.
And then at one stage, I sort of got a little bit bored with that world and I thought I need to read something in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of both.
Both?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am I split them.
Okay.
So with like the Outlander series and yes, The Painted Man, and I'm also reading another series, the Poldark series. I take big breaks amongst them as well. I think because I enjoy them, that if I do like you read them all in one go, that I'll get bored and
Yeah.
won't finish the series.
Yeah, I have that with authors too. Sometimes you find a new author and you think, oh my God, they're great. And you try and read everything of them. But then I get bored with that style or whatever. So I need to read something in between, which is good. We have a whole library to choose from, so it's not hard. Yeah.
All right. Well, Susan, what have you read?
I've read 2 books and a chapter of a 3rd book, and then didn't finish it. So I'm not finishing it. So the 2 books, I'll just put my glasses on. The funny thing about Norman Foreman,
Oh, yes.
I finished in the last month, and just 5 out of 5. Absolutely adored it. Page turner, well written, different. I like things that are different, not time travel different, but just different in real life.
It was a real in this one.
So these 2 boys, late primary school, decide to be a comedy duo when they grow up, and so one's a straight man and one's a funny man, and so they watch everything that's a comedy show from the past. They school themselves in that, and they practice, and they have a 5-year plan to get to Edinburgh Comedy Festival as a duo. Well, things don't go as planned. I don't want to give too much away. That's plan A, and plan A can't happen. So, but one of them still wants it to happen, and also wants to find his birth father. The mother is a self-confessed hopeless mother, does everything wrong, is just terrible at being a mother and just stuffs it up right, left and centre. But she decides to make her son's wish come true, and all these people jump on board and help her and her son out to get there, you know. And it's just beautifully chaotic, and you're just kind of rooting for the main characters, and it's just, look, it would suit teenagers to 90-year-olds. It's just, there's nothing in it that's going to be objectionable, and it's just a hoot. It really is. I loved it. I think you recommended it, Ita.
Yes, I loved it too.
And you can get that from the library, and I didn't have to wait long for it to come in. I think it'll get more and more popular, so jump in now if you want to have a read of that. So that's not the funny thing about Norman Foreman, and what a great title.
Yes.
It really
What a
was.
great character.
Yeah. And the second one was The Imitator. Someone recommended to me. I can't remember who. Oh, Rebecca Stanford. Okay, so I like a bit of a Cold War or a spy type thing, but I particularly was drawn to this because it was a female character, and she grows up in a village with very sort of ordinary sort of parents, extremely smart, and doesn't quite fit into village life. So she gets herself a scholarship to a prestigious boarding school. But because she doesn't quite fit in, she tends to blend into the background and survives that way. She is, as she gets older, she's noticed for that ability, and she's offered a government job just before the Second World War. And as there is some English Nazi sympathisers around, don't want to say too much more. It's extremely well written.
Okay.
I think it was published recently in the last couple of years, set in England. I really loved it. It was a page turner. Yeah, 4 out of 5. Yeah. Just, yeah, I hung in there, right? Like, I was just so keen to see what every chapter, like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? It goes, there's 2 time, so it is a time travel. There's 2 time reflected in the book. So without that, it wouldn't make sense. You needed those 2 time things. So it was very important. And I didn't mind that. So, yeah, so it was really good. I tried, is it Shuggy Bain? Is that right? Shruggy Bane, the
Oh yeah, Shaggy Bane.
Booker Prize winner.
Yeah.
Okay. I was warned off it. And then I had to ask people, like, should I read this? I'm not sure, because I've been reading so many reviews and going, oh, it's too confronting. And 50-50 some people said they loved it. Other people said, don't go near it. So I went near it. But I only got one chapter in and I knew I couldn't do it. It's just, yeah, I think I would have had nightmares. So I'd read similar things about, childhood abuse stuff with, Honeybee, and there's another one I can't remember that was even more challenging recently, and I just couldn't do a third one. I just couldn't. However, I'm sure it's a really good book, and if you aren't a person who's doesn't want to read about child sexual abuse, if you can tolerate that, if you can do that, and you want some hard stuff to read that's won a Booker Prize, then go for it. But I don't think people should run around recommending it if they haven't read it first and they know the person they're recommending it to. I think it's with caution, but I'm sure it's a brilliantly written book, but I couldn't do it. So that's my 2 books and 1 chapter for the month.
So is that one a fiction or is it a non?
Yeah, it's fiction. It's Scottish. It's got a Scottish author. And it's just poverty and abuse.
I've read a lot of reviews about it on Facebook, and a lot of people said it's really hard read, but other people love it.
Yeah.
So it must be well written to win but still, it's not something I would read for fun. But for a book club, that might be a good one because you then can discuss it. No, you don't think?
No, not for a book club, because you just don't know who's there and what their backgrounds are. And look, it was even the 1 chapter I could tell the writing was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm right. And then there's the last paragraph, the first chapter, I went, I'm not right. I can't do this. So I really tried to be brave enough, but no, I wouldn't recommend it to a book club because you just don't know background experiences of the people there.
And the stats say that 7 out of 10 women in Australia have suffered from some form of sexual abuse before the age of 18, and it's 4 out of 10 for men, but they believe that the men's figure is underreported because it's not something that boys want to own up to. So on that basis, you wouldn't want to be landing a bombshell into a book club that you don't know where people are at. It's a book people can make a personal choice to
absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it's book club material, but I'm just being overprotective of people, I guess. So certainly if there's any males in your group and you don't know their backgrounds, I think you'd at least have to ask them to check it out and see if they'd be comfortable with it. I think that's at least you have to do that much, because I think it could be traumatic.
Yeah, for sure. Susan, I didn't get the author of The Imitator.
Rebecca Stanford. Stanford or Stanford. I'm not sure if it's an M or an N.
I have that on my bookshelf.
Oh, have you?
Oh, do you?
Might.
Yeah, I love it. I enjoyed it, really. It was a good page turner. It's like, it was just pure escapism. But it actually, oh, no, I won't say anymore.
And Julian, I remembered via looking up Wikipedia where I'd heard of John Birmingham. He was an article writer before he wrote. He died with a falafel in his hand and wrote for Australian magazines. But famously in 2000 and something, anyway, it was after Steve Irwin died, Germaine Greer wrote a scathing piece about Steve Irwin. And John Birmingham then wrote an article, I think in The Guardian, where he tore her to shreds. And parts of what he had to say were actually quoted in New South Wales Parliament. So that's I remembered the name from somewhere, and I just couldn't. So while Sue was giving her her dissertation, I just had a little look through Wikipedia. So, but yeah, and no children's books, Sue.
Okay, yeah. Oh, well, thanks for that. I'll check that out. I mean,
Yeah.
how could you write anything bad about Steve Irwin? I mean, I'll definitely have a look at that. That seems crazy to me, but
yeah,
no, sounds good.
Well, that's Jermaine. She likes a headline.
Jermaine, yeah, sure. Cool.
Okay, so we'll move on to what we are currently reading. So, Ita, what are you currently reading?
Well, big surprise. The Last Migration. And so I started it, I think last night or the night before. And for me, it's slow going because
It is early. It is early. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really depressing, but it's beautiful writing. And because you all loved it, I'm gonna continue reading it. But it hasn't gripped me so far. Like, it's beautifully written, but I'm not on board yet with Franny.
Okay.
Yeah, because I find it so depressing now. But seeing you say she's resilient and blah blah blah, I'll give it a go.
Show me where your bookmark is. Just hold the book up with bookmark. No, end on so I can see. End on so I can see the end. Flip. No, go again. Go again.
Open the book.
The cup page. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
You've got about another 30, 40 pages and it'll really take off.
Oh, good.
Slow to
I
start.
thought so. Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, it went very slow. But then yesterday, I go, oh no, I'll just do one more chapter. So yeah, it is starting to draw me in. Mm-hmm. But it's beautifully written, but depressing so far.
Yeah, I actually found it not a page turner in the sense of wanting to know who done it with a thriller.
Yeah.
But it was a page turner for me because I wanted to see what happened to Frenny and go on her journey. Because I felt like I was taking that journey with her. So it was quite a quick. I found it a quick read.
Really?
Even though it
for me, it's a slow one.
Even though it was like a depressing book, I just really wanted to take that journey with her and find out what happened to her and if she found the Arctic terns. And
it reminded me of another book we read about this girl that had to go on a boat. It was for an author talk, and then because COVID happened, we didn't do it. So I've forgotten the name. Below Deck. Yeah. So it sort of reminded me of that, and that was very depressing. So that's why yes, Susan?
I think Julian might like it because it's a bit apocalyptic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is set in the near future.
Because that's what I find depressing. The polar bears have died, the monkeys have died, everything's dying, and it's another one that's close to the bone, like, it could happen.
Deals with climate.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep going.
But it's very low tech, Julian.
It's low tech, yes. But
I don't mind that. I don't mind low tech, but that's okay.
You don't mind? Yeah. I'm also listening to one on the way to work, and there was I'm waiting for the Thursday Morning Club to come in, so I just picked a random one again, and it's called Understory by Inga Simpson. And it's another super slow one because it's a memoir and she's talking about trees. And I know I like trees, but maybe not in that much detail. But it's interesting. Like when you're stuck in traffic, you might as well learn something, about trees. So on my way to Nundle to Tech Savvy Seniors, I was listening to it. But it's not something I would pick up and, it's not a page turner. But it's interesting enough to keep listening. Yeah. So what are you reading?
So I had just finished Silka's Journey last night.
Yep.
So the next book I will read is The Bone Code by Kathy Wright. And it's the latest release in her Dr. Temperance Brennan book. So it's Dr. Temperance Brennan is a forensic anthropologist. So again, it's just a thriller murder mystery. But I am also listening to a book for one of my online book groups. And
2 books at a time, man. That's not you.
Well, this one's over 600 pages, and it's How to Prepare for Climate Change, a practical guide to surviving the chaos by David Crowe. It is kind of basic basically talks about climate change in America. And it's interesting because I was like, oh, I want to live on the beach. But now he's like saying, you know, if you want to, the best place to live while we're going through climate change is basically a place like Tamworth. So he said, don't live in areas that easily flood, that, you know, just go through bushfires. And yes, there's places that have beaches are going to be the first one to go under. To go under. So I'm like really disappointed with that. So maybe it's
just a suggestion. You could still live on the beach. You've just got to pick where it's going to be.
That's right. Well,
like where the beach is going to end up being. How far in?
You have a caravan. Have a caravan,
that's right.
So you can keep moving.
Yes, and I've kind of really enjoyed it because I think I was probably like I don't really know much about climate change to actually offer an opinion or a full discussion. But I think I was kind of naive enough that it didn't really have repercussions on us as humans. But he goes in, you know, like climate change is it affects, you know, like suicide rates, employment rates, and all that type of thing. So I found it really interesting, and he, you know, does give you points on how you can go about saving the planet. And yes, it is like so America at the moment is buying up all the housing that is in floodwaters, so nobody can build or live there. And he also said that there is a website that you can go to and you can look up places that you may like to live, and it will tell you the stages that it could get to during the climate change. So it might actually say, well, I'd like to live at such and such, but in 20 years' time, it's probably not the place to live. So I'm not going to actually move there. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I've got quite a lot to go and listen to, but yeah, I'm finding it.
So that's
really,
non-fiction.
It's a non-fiction. Yeah, so I'm finding. I mean, I don't think I would have picked it up if it hadn't have been for my book group. Yeah. But yeah, I'm finding it really interesting.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'm glad I've done my tree change then, from the coast to the country. So I'm fine. The beach will come to me eventually.
Yeah.
Right. What do you want to talk to?
Peter, what are you currently reading?
Just started this one yesterday.
Loud. I saw that on our show.
Yeah. By Tanya Douglas. By reputation, the first female rock and roll roadie. She started out as a roadie with AC/DC when they were in Sydney, and just a bunch of young blokes. And she ended up being a roadie for some of the biggest bands throughout the world, The Who and various other things. Just read the first chapter. Absolutely disastrous and awful beginning to a life. Ran away from home at 15, or from the eventual home she was in at 15. And then started up this sort of rock and roll lifestyle. But so I'll be interested to see where it goes. It's got very good reviews. So that's, just started that. And after that, I'm hoping to move on to Julie Jansen's book, Benevolence, which I don't know a lot about, but the blurb drew me in. So.
Ooh, Julian.
Well, I mentioned before, I didn't know you were going to ask what I'm currently reading, but like I said before, I'm on John Birmingham, Axis of Time, halfway through the first book of 6. So I've got a long way to go there. But I might take a pause on, what was it called? The Migration that you're reading, Ita?
Yes.
That one sounds interesting, so I'll put that on.
Yes.
Maybe read next. So, yeah.
That might be a one book, one reading choice too. So.
Yes, I did put that on the list.
Yeah, I actually think it'd be a good one, but you need if you found it slow to start, then maybe you need to consider that.
So I put Norman Foreman forward as well
Oh,
because
Norman
the
Foreman.
light one.
Everyone
Yeah.
will love that. It's a cracker. It's a
Yeah.
cracker, it really is.
Yeah, I put the last migration down, but I did say that it was probably aimed more towards avid readers already. It's probably not going to capture somebody that wants to get back into reading.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
also
no.
did put the Thursday Murder Club down as well, because I thought that it was very lighthearted, pure escapism, and would be good if someone was looking to get back into reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got some good choices there.
Yep, for sure.
So Susan, what are you currently reading?
Okay, I'm currently reading 2 books. So one at night that's not going to be a page turn and keep me awake. But Barack Obama's Promised Land. So I'm halfway through.
You just want him on your night side table, don't you?
Yeah, this is my nighttime reading, because otherwise I'll become an insomniac if I read something too exciting.
That's what we call a thump book in our house.
Look.
Thump book. That's the noise it makes when it drops out of her hand when she falls asleep at night.
Wake up Peter.
It's really, I had to stop for a few nights because I was going, oh, man, because he's moved, he's in office and he's now dealing with government policy, and there was pages and pages about the car industry. So that's sort of, so now it's about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and whether they mobilise more troops and all that sort of stuff. So it is heavy going in that it's all about government policy, but his writing is excellent.
Yeah.
His writing is excellent. So I'm hanging in there through it. I think I always have the chance of just skimming through that and then getting to his last few months, which will be really interesting. Certainly when he knows Trump's coming to power, that'll be an interesting read.
Yeah.
Which I had to do with Malcolm Turnbull's memoir. I skipped a bit of the middle stuff and just got to those last few weeks when it was being crazy in the bubble. So that can be done, but I'm going to try, because I love Barack Obama so much. I don't want to desert him while he's trying to run office. So I'll hang in there if I can. But if he gives me 3 or 4 pages about something really, really boring, I just think I'll skip bits. So yeah, I will endeavour to finish it. It could take me a long while yet, but I'll get there. So, and then after that, I want to do the classic, The Yearling, that was recommended, because I want to do classics at night this year. This is my current read, which I'm getting close to finishing. The Stationery Shop of Tehran. Tehran. It was written a couple of years ago. A friend gave it to me to read. It's actually, I thought it'd be a really kind of light romantic thing, and maybe not my thing, but it's not that. It's much more than that. There's certainly a romance, and that's but because of class differences, it's a bit of Romeo and Juliet sort of stuff, that's problematic. But the thing is, it's set in the late 50s when there was so much upheaval in Iran, and that's almost a character in the book, the background of what's happening where they're living. And then it's got so many twists and turns, and then the main character ends up in America, and so there is a time jump. So you've got the late 50s, and then you've got contemporary, like about 2013 being represented, and everything's sort of in between, and there's letters backwards and forwards. So if those that like a bit of letter writing in their books would like this. There's sister rivalry. So it's about romance, it's about problems with that, it's about class, it's about politics, it's about adapting to a new country, it's about loss, grieving and loss. So there's a lot in there, and you just know that next chapter something else is going to pop up, and you're going to go, well, that's a reveal. Didn't see that coming. Or, oh yeah, that fits really nicely, I'm glad the writer put that in. I wouldn't have thought of that. So it's good. I'm enjoying it very much. I'll be finished it soon, and then I want to do a young adult novel because of the reading challenge list.
It's a good one.
Yes, yours.
Ghostbird.
But I did count. I said to Ita I'd contact my niece. I did. She gave me a recommendation, and I put in a request, and it's already arrived, and it's in the car, ready to go on holidays with me.
Do you remember what it's called?
I can't remember. It's something about lying, and it's about, just quickly remembering the blurb. It's about a group of teenagers, something on Facebook, and someone dies and someone lies. That's about all I can remember from the blurb.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about that one.
Yeah, and I just thought it was really actually nice to connect with my niece that way.
Yes.
That she's recommending a book to her old auntie, and that later on we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And I might read more of her stuff if there's a nice connection going, because they love books. We always buy them books. They're twins, a niece and a nephew. We buy them books for birthday and Christmas every year. And now as I get older, I get them to actually tell me which title they want me to buy rather than guess, because they're going on to 16. It's just getting harder and harder to find them. So, yeah, they tell me what they want me to buy them. We buy them that. So, yeah, so that'll be good to have that conversation with her. We can have a little book club chat, me and my niece, my niece and I. We'll have a Zoom meeting.
Yes, why not?
Yeah.
We're nearly out of time.
We are nearly out of time.
How do we always manage to get everybody in, and then we look at the clock and go, oh, we're nearly out of time? It seems to always happen that way, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we could sit here for a lot longer talking about books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we should wrap up. So please join us for our next meeting, which will be on Wednesday, May 19th at 11 a.m. So come with your questions and your book chats, and also sign up for the book chat blog for the books we have discussed today. You can also subscribe to our podcasts available on Google Podcasts and on Apple Podcasts. If you do, please take the time to give us a review, as that will help other people find the Book Chat podcast. And we look forward to seeing you next month. And don't forget to check out those great events that we mentioned earlier.